Hi there, and welcome to the Multiply You podcast, where we showcase top experts in their space and reveal all the secrets you need to know to multiply you.
Hey everybody, Austin Clark here, host of the Multiply You podcast, where I talk with and interview top business leaders and experts in their space. Today I've got Jeremy Weiss of Rise 25. He's done thousands of interviews with successful entrepreneurs and CEOs, and we flipped the script, and today he'll be interviewing me. Jeremy, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Austin, thanks for having me. I'm excited because we're going to talk about taking action. Taking purposeful action, not just any action, purposeful action. And before we get into that, this episode is brought to you by Moxie Pest Control. If anyone's listened to any episodes, Austin, I know one of the number one focuses you have is obviously building the team, growing the company, but it's also buying other pest control businesses. So if you're out there and you know of anyone who is a pest control business, maybe three or more trucks on the road, really respectable brand, he would love to talk to you. And I remember there's people that you've purchased their business. They were not even looking to sell the business, and they never thought that they could sell the company for what you ended up paying for it. So if you do have questions or you know of someone, you can go to aclark@moxiepestcontrol.com and email Austin or text him directly at 480-254-9730. Let's talk about taking purposeful action, not just taking action. And, I wanted to kind of start with, when you think of purposeful action, Austin, what comes to your mind?
I think a perfect example. So you and I, we've been doing some of these sessions for the book with Michael Gerber, which has been fun and exciting. And we're down to the last couple of chapters, right? And I think the way that I've gone about it week after week is, this is more of an interesting topic to me. Let's do this one first. Oh man, I really don't want to do that. And so I find myself daily, but even in just this process of doing the book and writing the book with Michael, to procrastinate on different things. And so I think for me that Covey is probably the one that has said it the best, or in a way that's been the easiest for my mind to be able to understand, as far as action and what we ought to be about really every day. And so there's a couple of exercises that he walks you through in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Most people have probably read it. If you haven't, read it. If you have, read it again. But one of the exercises at the very beginning is he asks you to kind of visualize your funeral service, which is kind of like dark and morbid. And initially it's maybe a little shocking. But the purpose of that is to be able to think about and consider what you would like to have said of you, right, at your funeral services, because death and taxes are both inevitable. They are going to happen. And so, the idea is that, when you do that, you kind of touch on some of the things that are the very most important to you. And from that, you can write a personal mission statement. Different businesses have different either core values or purposes or mission statements as well. And then once you can kind of identify for you the way that you want to live your life or conduct business or whatever it may be, then you can kind of plan what that looks like and reverse engineer it to get you to, if I want to be here in 30, 40, 50 years, then in 20 years, I ought to be here. In 10 years, I ought to be here. In 5 years, I ought to be here. In 1 year, I ought to be here. In 1 quarter, I need to be here. And then all the way back down to today. And so what do I need to be doing today? He's famous for his quadrants, the 4 quadrants, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And a lot of us, I'll speak for myself, sometimes spend our time in areas or places that are urgent and not important. And he identifies those things perhaps as text messages or a phone call. And it's not to say that a phone call or a text or an email or whatever isn't important. It just means that it may not have really been planned. And so that could, that instance or that exchange or that, thing may be robbing you of some of the things that you had planned that are the very most important. he identifies those things in quadrant 2 as being important and not urgent. The reason it's so difficult to stay and live in quadrant 2 is just for that fact alone, that they are not urgent and they are easy to push off, and to not take care of and to not do. And so it's a lot easier to get stuck in the thick of thin things, working in your business rather than on your business, and not really moving the needle. And so those are some of the things that come to mind.
Austin, I want to talk about the book. First of all, you're referring to, people can check it out when it comes out. If it's out, check it out. E-Myth, Pest Control Contractor, Why Most Pest Control Companies Don't Work and What to Do About It, with Austin Clark and Michael Gerber. So check it out. But I'm going to ask you about, what do you default to when you're procrastinating? And people can recognize in themselves, if you are, when you're listening to this, what do you do, like as an audience member, when you are procrastinating? Because if you recognize it and okay, at least I'm procrastinating. And before you answer that, there's 2 books that come to my mind, Austin. I love, Stephen Covey's books. One is Brian Tracy, Eat That Frog. And it is what it says. He's like, eat that frog. The first thing you do of the day, do the thing that you are maybe dreading. Maybe that's the most important thing that you could do, because then the rest of the day is easier. And then the other quote, one of my favorite books, is Wooden by John Wooden. And he talks about never mistake activity for achievement. And that's when we talk about this, which is taking purposeful action, because just because there's a lot of activity does not mean that's going to result in achievement. So what do you default to when you procrastinate?
Yeah, I love a lot of the things that you just said. I'll comment on a few of them.
Go ahead.
So this is confession time. I'll confess first, and I'll only do this if listeners promise to do the same thing with themselves. So I don't, I'm not really like on social, and so social media isn't like a time suck or time waster for me. Some of the things that I like to do when I'm procrastinating, and I think what you said, Jeremy, is probably the most important thing. And so once we can identify those things in ourselves, when we find ourselves doing them, we can say, oh my gosh, Austin, stop. You're procrastinating. When you procrastinate, this is what you do. And so for me, one of those, so I'm at my office today in Phoenix, and I'm here a lot. I'm either here or at home, working. And so one of the things that I like to do if I just need a break or want to procrastinate is I'll go back to our shop, our warehouse in the back, and look at or organize our cage, some of our equipment, some of our product, some of our whatever else is back there, or take the trash out. I'm not above taking the trash out. I like to do that. And if something needs to be done, then I'll do it. And so I'll resort more to not manual labor, but things that don't take a lot of brain power, because maybe mine's spent. And so I think that all of us have got those safe things or places. Another one for me is we have a lot of different ways that we communicate internally. So, I mean, and everyone does. You might use Slack, you might use Pronto, you might use email, probably, right? You might have another internal type platform. Maybe you have an internal Facebook page, and that's how you're doing it. But I'll check those way more often than I should. I mean, there's no message that I would get in Pronto, email, whatever, that could not wait an hour or 2 hours or more than that. If there's an emergency, someone's going to get a hold of me. You know what I mean? Whether it's at home or in the business or whatever else. And so, another kind of illustration I might give, and when you said, or talked about John Wooden and not confusing action with purposeful action, is, we'll usually talk about this a lot with some of our salespeople, and the principles apply all over the place. Do you fish, Jeremy, at all? Have you ever been fishing?
I have.
So you know what it is. You've done it. You know what I mean? And so if I ask you how big the fish was that you caught, you'd probably lie about it like fishermen do and say it was 4 feet when it was a minnow. But, think about this. So how many times, imagine you were a regular fisherman and outdoorsman, and I don't know if you are or not, but how many
I
times
wouldn't call myself that, no, but
what did you? Okay.
I would know.
So when you were buying your fishing license at the sporting goods store, Walmart, or wherever, how many fish did you catch, like while you were checking out buying your license? 0 to 0, or not very many. Well, what about like when you bought the hooks and line and worms and the tackle box and all the things that you needed? How many did you catch then? Probably the same amount as before. Well, what about when you drove to the lake or the stream or the river? Did any fish like jump into the car while you were probably not? You know what I mean? And so like, what about when you like got onto the lake or the river and like you were there? Did they just like jump into your pocket? And so what I'm trying to say is that the only chance that you have of actually catching a fish is when you have your line in the water, it's properly baited, and that's it. And even at that point, there's no guarantee to catching fish. And so to Wooden's point and to your point, Jeremy, don't confuse yourself by doing fishing things with actually fishing. So you actually need to be fishing to have an opportunity to catch fish. You actually need to be marketing to have an opportunity to bring leads in. You know what I mean? You actually need to be. And so what is that you need to be doing? Don't confuse activity for purposeful action.
I love that, because in a business world, I've talked to people, and you probably have too, there may be, you could tell they're procrastinating a bit. There's people I've talked to, they spent 3 months on business cards and a website, right? And those are the things, well, have you talked to any potential customer? Those things, you can tell they're kind of procrastinating on the items because of what the next step. It's a little more difficult than just focusing on the font of the business cards.
Yep.
So
and unfortunately, those things, do they matter? Sure. Do you need them to go get revenue and make sales? Absolutely not. In fact, you don't even need a product or a service to be able to make revenue. Now you should, because if you're selling a good or service and you actually don't have one, then that might not be like super ethical, but you actually don't need that to have revenue happen. So, I think that we've talked a couple of times about Grant Cardone. He's got a couple of books out that are good and polarizing, and you either love them or not. I really like him. About 85% of his stuff I really, really love. The 10X rule is one of them. Be obsessed or be average is another one. He talks about a period of his life when he was kind of doing, Jeremy, like you said, he had done really well, got out of one business, and then was launching another business and spent like 12 months organizing, planning, business cards, bought a really expensive computer at the time. It was like $2,000 when computers, weren't really a thing. Organizing the files inside of the folder. I mean, everything was just perfect and ready to go. And he hadn't called on a customer in 12 months. Like, what are you doing? Right. And so you will learn so much more by just doing something. Just go do it. And you're going to make mistakes and it's not going to be perfect, but you'll learn so much quicker, so much faster than sitting there planning, waiting. Get out there, fail fast, get back up, fail fast again, and keep the iterations coming.
Yeah, I love that. And so on the flip side, so procrastination, you have these procrastination activities you do. Now, when you're purposeful and you're on track, and what are the things, what allows you to stay on track? And I know we've talked in the past about your calendar. What are some of the things you're doing when you follow this, you will stay on track?
Yeah. So for me, it all starts with my morning routine. I get up early. Right now I'm waking up at 4, to the office by about 5. And that time in the morning for me, it's really sacred. It's really important. It's the only time that I'm awake where a lot of other people aren't awake. And so my phone isn't going quite yet. My email isn't, those things aren't happening. And so, I would say consider your morning routine. For me, Reflecting is part of that. Reading good books, listening to good things, scripture study is a part of that for me. And it just reviewing my personal mission statement, considering my goals, right, and other roles that I have in my life, and how I'm doing or not doing in those areas. Exercise is important. And so for me, it starts with a good morning routine. And then it's really planning to win the month before, week before. I don't know what your planning looks like, or anyone else's, obviously, that's listening, but I look to plan usually a quarter out in advance. And so when I have an appointment, I keep those appointments, and there's really not a lot that comes in between what I've already previously committed to and what's there. And so my calendar helps me to really just stay in line and on point. And I do the very best that I can to make sure that those quadrant 2 things that are important but not urgent are scheduled, so that I've got time dedicated to working on them and to accomplishing them.
That makes sense. So you basically put these big rocks there first, so that things get planned around those, so that that's not moving. And that's key, that it's also not only in your calendar, but you can plan around it. What's most important.
That's it. Exactly.
There's 2 things I want to go over, Austin. One is an example of procrastination. And then 2 is an example of purposeful action. All right. So let's start with procrastination. And I know there was a time in your life, and it doesn't necessarily for everyone have to be business, it could be personal related, that stuck out for you as far as procrastination goes.
So this is a funny story. It's funny now. 7 or 8 years ago when it happened, it definitely wasn't funny. And I think that a lot of people have had a similar experience to this. So maybe it was like 10 or 11 years ago. Geez, it's been a while. My tail light was out. Okay. And I got a fix-it ticket for it. And so sometimes the police officers are really nice and gracious and generous, and will say, hey, this one's on me, go fix it. And then when you do, there's this form that the state or city will send, and you fill that out. So this police officer was really great and gave me a fix-it ticket. Well, I got it fixed, but I never filled out the form. And so for all they knew, it was not fixed. And so it was a ticket. Well, when you have tickets that you don't take care of, that can be problematic for your driver's license and good standing and all of that. There was also a mistake. They had either an old address, or the address that they had recorded was wrong. And so I got this fix-it ticket. I took care of my vehicle. I didn't take care of the form to fill out. And I was getting these notices over like a 6-month period. Hey, friendly reminder, you're supposed to fix this by this date. If not, this will happen. Hey, we didn't see that you handled business here. In 30 days, your license is at risk of being suspended. Hey, it's been 30 more days. Your license is at risk of being suspended in 60 days. Hey, 60 days has gone by. Anyway, my license got suspended. And then unbeknownst to me, I'm driving around for like 6 months with a suspended driver's license. And I get pulled over for something else that was super simple. It wasn't even like a moving violation. It might have been like a tail light or something else again, or like not signaling or something. And the police officer said, hey, I've got some like bad news for you. Your license is suspended. And we have to, like in the state of Arizona at the time, maybe it's still the same way, but they're like, we have to like impound your car now. And I'm like, what? Incredulous, like, what are you, are you kidding me? And that was the deal. And so, I mean, literally they right there, like impounded my car. They had it towed, which I had the pleasure of paying for. They took it to a tow yard. I should have been in like the tow yard business, because I think all those guys are bajillionaires because of like the rate that they pay, like $1 million a day to have your car there. And it was awful. I had to call my wife, get a ride home, had my car impounded, had to pay fines on fines. I mean, you just think of all of that waste of not just money, but like time and resources and whatever. And so because I procrastinated or didn't take care of something that I should have, cost me a lot of time and money that I otherwise would have not had to have happen.
Not fun. Not
Yeah.
fun at all.
It's kind of funny now, though, right? I mean, sort of funny.
It gives me a little pain. But on the flip side, purposeful action and planning, that purposeful action, there's a couple things that stick out, which is I know that you create this action plan when you release bundle pricing, when you open a new segment. I'll let you kind of walk through one of those examples of a purposeful action.
Yeah, and so here's a couple of things that I'm proud of with our people here at Moxie, and just things that we've just done. And so over the last couple of years, we've moved towards a monthly subscription model, and things seem to be going that way. We did that because we have multiple service offerings, and so if you own a home in Phoenix or the greater Phoenix area, the Valley, chances are good that you might have issues with general pest control, ants, spiders, scorpions, whatever. We handle that. There's a cost to that. We do weeds as well. There's a cost, to that. We do termites. We do specialty work like bees and bed bugs and whatever. And so rather than kind of like an a la carte menu like we used to do, it's X amount of dollars for this, X amount of dollars for that. We just said, hey, choose whatever you want to have covered, and it's this much a month. And then this is the frequency in which we come to handle those pests and take care of business. And if you need us, we'll come back. It's free. And so we did take some time. We did plan. We considered our customers. And actually, this was all inspired by customers because they hated the way that we were billing, like with the a la carte stuff. It would be $50 for 6 months straight, and then every quarter was $100 for this thing. And so like the billing was just really wonky and not convenient for them, for us, for anybody. It wasn't a great experience. And so we probably spent 2 to 3 months like really putting together this model. We thought that we had it about there, and the time had just come. It was probably about 85 or 90% of the way there, where we just said, hey, we just got to push this through. We've kind of beat this to death. Anything that we don't know, we'll learn very, very quickly. Believe me, our customers will tell us. And they did. And we did make some errors, and we did make some mistakes. Another.
And that's how you get feedback, like just by taking action and putting it out there.
It is. Well, so think about this. I don't know if you're like an Android or an Apple guy, and whoever's listening, you know who you are, but I have an iPhone. There's, no pun intended, like bugs that are being worked out, right? I mean, all of the time. I mean, once every 10 days, there's a new update. Do you think that they're waiting until it's perfect to be able to release that? Like, no, the consumers will give them the feedback. You know what I mean? And they're gonna make a buck along the way. And so I think that there's just a lot of wisdom in, do you want to plan? Yes. Do you want to take calculated risks? For sure. Do you want to do what's right by your customer? Absolutely, every single time. But there does come a time when you just have to get out there and do it. And in the doing, you will get the feedback that you need to be able to pivot, refine, make things better for your customer. So, I mean, Gary Vee, he's super popular right now. He's also got some neat books out. Crushing It is one of them. I think Jab, Jab, Punch is another one of them. But he's been a great example to me. He's all over social. Of just doing things, right? I mean, he is, I think he like constantly has a camera in front of his face. He's not rehearsing his scripts before he does it. I mean, it is very raw. It is very authentic. Maybe sometimes he says things that he didn't mean to say or didn't want to say or could have said better, but like, it's done, it's out, it's content. He'll do it better the next time. And the feedback will be there. Believe me. I mean, in his comments, like, he'll get the feedback that he needs or wants to be able to improve. And so that was one instance when we did the billing. We've also, launched different service segments, whether they've been divisions in like the commercial space or the multifamily space or the industrial space. And so it's the same sort of principle. I mean, we planned for a little bit. We got it as good as we thought that we could get it. We knew that it wasn't perfect. We put it out there. And then we receive the feedback and we make those adjustments to be able to improve the process and to provide value to our customer.
Austin, I love that. And one of my friends sent me a t-shirt. Alex sent me a t-shirt that said, version done is better than version none. And I was actually wearing that t-shirt a couple of days ago. So any last words on action and purposeful action? And I just want to, say if people have questions, they can email you at aclark@moxiepestcontrol.com. Check out more episodes of the podcast. Check out eMyth Pest Control Contractor. Any final words about purposeful action?
I guess I would just say to summarize is, one, don't confuse action with purposeful or meaningful action. Two, really prioritize on those things that will move the needle in your personal life, in your business, whatever it might be. Identify those things that you do, like those comfort things that you do, right, when you're procrastinating, so that you can say, oh my gosh, I'm procrastinating right now. Stop, right? How do we break that habit or redirect that habit, or identify that what we're doing is probably not as productive as what we could be doing or should be doing? And then just maybe take a little bit more of a risk this week or this month. Don't do anything stupid, not pay your fix-it ticket and have your license suspended and have your car impounded like I did. But maybe push something out there that's not quite done when that might not be normal for you. It's not that I want bad things to happen to anybody, but I think that if you did that, what is the worst thing that could happen, right? The worst thing that could happen is you could get it out there, you could get feedback quicker, and you could improve it quicker. And you'll learn more in doing rather than planning and thinking and stressing and whatever else. So take action and make sure it's purposeful action.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Austin, for having me.
Hey, no problem. Thanks, Jeremy. See you, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Multiply You podcast. You'll see us again soon when you subscribe for future episodes.